On today's show, Dell Curry, the father of Steph, says that number 30 is nowhere near calling it quits for his career. Could Steph be playing into his 40s? Let's debate.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? We appreciate you for making Locked On Warriors a part of your day and a part of your week. The best way you can help us grow the show is hit that like, hit that subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Ways you could check out the show: YouTube for visuals. How we doing, everyone? You can also check us out wherever you get your audio podcast to take us on the go. My name, Charlie Walter, credentials, formerly at 95.7 The Game. That's the flagship station for the Golden State Warriors on the radio in the Bay Area. Also covered the team for CBS News Bay Area in downtown San Francisco. Guest today's Matt Kolsky. He was formerly with me at 95.7 The Game. Also covered the team for KNBR and is a frequent guest on the Locked On Warriors podcast. On today, we're getting into a lot of broad NBA talk just in general. We also have some Warriors draft conversations coming up. One of the greatest players in NBA history was selected at 41st. The Warriors have the 41st selection on the 25th of June. Do we feel like there's anyone in that spot that could really change the game from day one for Golden State? But we have to start with a comment that Dell Curry had on Steph, saying that number 30 is nowhere near hanging it up. Let's start this conversation with Matt Kolsky and get into the meat and potatoes of today's show. Warriors obviously trying to get another one for Curry, Kerr, Draymond, and just in general. Of course, they're trying to get another one. But Dell Curry says that Steph is not even close to retiring, still wants to win another championship, still loves the game, said Dell Curry. He's a competitive guy that wants to win another title. So we are not even close to that window yet. But when the time comes, I think he will make the right decision. Is this a situation to where Curry could be playing into his 40s? I mean, he's going to be 38 this upcoming season. Could we be talking about another contract after these next 2 years? Because as of now, we've talked about this, that he here and there he loses a step. I mean, there were very few games back in the day where he would have 0 field goals. In fact, there was none. And we saw that invincibility kind of wear off at times, especially pre-Jimmy Butler when he had a lot on his plate. But post-Jimmy Butler, when there was some stress taken off him and, Butler could get to the rim and then kick it out to Curry and company, he was playing, I'd say, aside from maybe 2021, the season they lost to Memphis in the play. And I'd say in the last 5 years, he was playing as good of basketball at any stage. I mean, 50 points twice this season. Is there any signs to you that this guy can't go until he's 40?
No, of course he can if he wants to. Well, okay. I'm knocking on wood, because obviously the wild card is injury. If there's a serious injury, who knows?
Or just lingering hamstrings, if that becomes, somewhat of an issue.
I think it would have to become a very serious issue to end his career. But yeah, whatever, any physical thing that changes the equation aside, I don't think there's any question Steph Curry will be NBA level as a basketball player for years to come. I also don't think there's any question that the level will go down. There's no more improving for Steph Curry. He's not going to be a better player next year or the year after that. And in fact, if we're realistic, even though any fall off has been incredibly slight to this point, there probably will be fall off, however slight it is. So the question becomes, I think most importantly, how far is Stephen Curry willing to let his level fall before he's no longer interested in working as a professional basketball player, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Because in order to stay this good, the level of work and the amount of time Steph Curry puts in is hard to overstate, right? It's not just the basketball. It's working on his body. It's making choices to specifically prolong his abilities. All these things. It's a lot, dude. And certainly we're long past the point where Steph Curry or any of his generational descendants for thousands of years to come need the money. So it really just comes down to, when does Steph Curry feel like, I'm not the guy, I don't want to play if I can't be better than this? And I got to say, like, I don't think he's going to end up standing around in the corners like Steve Kerr did at the end of his career, but that runway feels pretty long. And I would not be at all surprised if there's 5 more years of Steph Curry in the NBA. You know, it's just, does he want to do it? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but he sure looked like he was having fun when things were going well last year. So it may come down to, how long can the Warriors continue to compete with him as the centerpiece?
Yeah, because even if he's not running around like he's doing now, spot up shooting is a valuable asset to have. We know he can do that. Would Steph Curry ever be someone that, you know, plays a Ray Allen role towards the end of his career and isn't asked to put up 20 points a night or whatever, and his scoring goes down to 12, but he's still extremely valuable and playing? But you do mention great points in that it is year round, man.
Yeah.
It is a year round job. He has kids. At some point, the little man is going to be picking up the ball and
Right.
stroking that thing from deep, and he's going to want to go to those games, man. So
And by the way, like, it's not that easy to navigate going from making $60 million a year to scoring 12 points a game on the team. Like, financially, emotionally, I don't know if that's doable. So we'll see. There's a lot of ins and outs, but if we're talking pure ability, barring some unforeseen complication, why not 5 more years? The guy is in unbelievable shape, and like you said, he's breaking 50 at 37. You know, why can't he still be effective at 40 or 42?
I don't see any reason why he couldn't. Any reason these free agent forwards bring a smile to your face? And granted, you see Kuminga on this list for those of you watching on YouTube. So there are restricted free agents here, but players that could be available. LeBron James, Julius Randle, Josh Giddey, I guess they're calling him a forward, Jonathan Kuminga, Chris Middleton. Let's skip over Kelly Oubre. That's not going to happen. Batum, Santi Aldama, Dorian Finney-Smith, John Collins, Matisse Thybulle, Yabusele. I liked him a lot in the Olympics, was good for Philly. Chris Boucher had a cup of coffee with the Warriors, but just absolutely cooked them in Toronto's win over Golden State last season. He's a big that can stretch the floor. Ben Simmons, to me, doesn't make any sense. Bogdanovich, he fits some things that they'd want for cheap. Laravia, we got Amir Coffee. He's a nice player. Tate, I don't know a lot about Jayshawn Tate. Torian Prince, I believe that is. And then Zaire Williams. Any of those names strike a chord?
I'll
leave it up for you.
I'm surprised you didn't skip the whole first line if you were going to skip Kelly Oubre. I don't know that you're getting Nick Batum. He would certainly be interesting. He's very tall. He's a good defender. He can shoot. Santi Aldama, similarly tall, can shoot, plays defense. Pretty interesting player. I don't know if he'd be in the Warriors' price range. Finney-Smith would be interesting, but again, it's a matter of, like, does Dorian Finney-Smith want to take a little less to be a Warrior? And I'm not sure I know why he would. Thybulle, no. Yabusele, you said interesting player, but probably looking to make as much money as he possibly can, given that, you know, he was basically a draft bust who is, I think, making a minimum salary and just had a sort of resurgent season for Philly after the World Championships. Or no, the Olympics, I guess that was, right? Whatever it was, the international competition. Chris Boucher, I have heard is like a I Love Toronto guy. I think he grew up there, so I don't know if that's in the cards. You know, Coffee and Tate are reasonably interesting. Torian Prince is reasonably interesting. None of them are surefire answers to the problem. Bogdanovich, if he was willing to come here, you know, when he's good, can shoot the lights out. Now, I'm not sure he's a Warrior defender, but he can shoot the lights out when he's right. So There's some interesting names on there, and I think it sort of gives you an idea of the problem, right? There are interesting names. There are guys you might be able to entice to get here, but you're probably fighting uphill to get most of them, and none of them are perfect answers to what you're looking for. And I think the list of bigs, if you had one, would be an even tougher one to find answers within. Which is why, you hate to say it, given the way everything's gone and the way I think you and I both expect it to go, but an idealized version of Jonathan Kuminga remains the best answer for the large part.
Coming up, Warriors have the 41st pick in the 2025 NBA draft, which happens to fall on June 25th. 41. Have any good players been drafted at that point? I think there's been a few. We'll talk about one and how he changed the direction of a franchise and why it's not impossible that the Warriors can at least get a little immediate help from that position. Who could be there? We'll discuss coming up.
And most importantly, he a dog.
We need more dogs.
The NBA playoffs are awesome. Unfortunately, they're almost over. So if you want to snag tickets to Game 6 in Indianapolis, the Gametime app is obviously the place to do it, but it's not just NBA games. It's anything. And with last-minute killer deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Gametime is a total game changer. I was just on the app and saw zone deals, 10% off for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. Yo, I like that you could see your exact view before you buy with no surprises. It's ridiculously simple, and it has the game time guarantee where you're getting the best deal because if you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. Wow. The NFL schedule just released, and Game Time makes scoring NFL tickets just as easy. You'll find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. With Game Time Guarantee, your tickets are 100% authentic and will arrive on time. And like I said, the best price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Here's the best answer to me is to find yourself Nikola Jokic in the NBA draft. And laugh all you want, but he was picked 41st overall. And in 9 days, the Warriors on the 25th have the 41st pick overall. Now, that doesn't happen, right? You don't get a Jokic often, but that is someone that was, a 10-point, 7-rebound kind of guy, a big that came in from day one at age 20 and, had an effective role and would be huge for the Golden State Warriors. The issue is you get one of those types of draft picks in the second round once every never. I mean, with how good Jokic is, never. It does not happen. However, you can get players that maybe a quarter of Jokic and can still provide some good value from day one. Is there anyone or any prototype? Are you looking, get the best player available potential-wise at that pick, or you get the most ready player, even if they have an extremely low ceiling, but they have a high enough floor to where day one you believe they could come in and give the Warriors what Curry and company's asking for?
Yeah, I mean, listen, to be clear, I know nothing about the players that might be selected at the 41st pick in the draft, right? So I think largely at that point, teams are looking for specific guys that they have identified as good fits with an upside they're interested in. If I was designing the player for the Warriors to draft, this is obviously assuming they don't make any significant trades, assuming Kuminga is going to be here at least for a few months, assuming, the roster is what it is more or less. Yeah, it's a 7-foot rebounder and defender. Like, great, it'd be great if he shot threes too, but that guy's not available at 41. But somebody that averaged 12 rebounds a game in college, and rebounds translate, and a little bit of rim protection and rebounding for the bench. Like, that would be really nice.
And then the reason he slides to 41 is just because he has no offensive polish, but you don't necessarily need that from him unless he's playing on the floor with Draymond.
Right. Again, I know nothing about who's there, but that's the sort of thing at 41. Maybe there's just a big guy with very little upside, doesn't move quick, but protects the rim and rebounds the basketball. And that would be a start, certainly, just to be someone, honestly, somebody to basically replace Kevon Looney's production, if you will. Production might not be the right word, but someone who's smart, plays defense, and rebounds.
And would save you probably $5 million or something in the process. Like, how much do you think
Over
Looney
Looney?
would get on the open market, realistically? Peyton or Looney, like, who is more expensive in your mind? Who's more valuable? That's the question. Who's more valuable to you?
Yeah, well, who's more valuable to the Warriors? I think I would lean Looney because of just the positional makeup of the team. Like, you just got Gary Payton becomes a question of how do you play him with all the guards and wings that you have on the team. Looney is just a question of, do you need that guy tonight, right? But I think he's probably more valuable. Plus, there's just like an institutional knowledge. He's been on this team as long as anybody besides, I think, Steph and Draymond. It's got to be, right? He might even have been there as long as Draymond. I don't know. So Looney is more valuable to the Warriors. On the open market, it's really beauty in the eye of the beholder sort of a thing, I think, because it depends what you need. They're both very specific guys with very obvious limitations, but if you really need somebody to be your backup big who can come in and rebound and never do anything stupid, can't do a lot better than Kevon Looney. And if you need a backup guard to play defense against the other team's best guard scorers sometimes, can't do a lot better than Gary Payton. So I think they both have value in their own way, but it has to be the right team looking for the right thing. And in all likelihood, it's playoff teams that are looking for that kind of thing. So the question is, of the teams that might want them, how many of them have the money to spend?
Who do you think is going to make the biggest splash in the offseason? Overall NBA team? Will it be San Antonio, Houston, Oklahoma City, a team from the East? Who do you believe, if you were a betting man right now and you got even odds for every team, no dark horses, who's going out there and making the biggest splash to where you're like, wow, that team they brought who to South Beach? Not two, not three, not four. Like, is there anything wild that's happening this offseason?
I think it's going to be a busy offseason with some interesting stuff, but I do think that the biggest move is the Kevin Durant move, and that's why I'm going to pick Houston.
So no Giannis, you think he's in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think. Look, there's a Bucks fan who lives in Milwaukee, big Bucks fan on my NBA group chat, one of them. And, when the offseason began and people were sort of giving him a hard time, he wrote like an impassioned, very long post about, like, if you don't mind giving me a break, basically, like, this guy means more than just 28 points and incredible highlights. He is literally as much of an economic driver as anything the city of Milwaukee has seen in decades. He's changed the entire downtown of the city just by being there, and he's been an incredible citizen and community member. And so, like, there's a real love there. And if I am in charge of the Bucks, Giannis is going to have to come at me with a knife to get traded. All right. And it doesn't seem like he's doing that. It seems like, since that initial report of Giannis is open to potential trades, it almost seemed like that was Giannis and his agents floating out there. If you guys would rather just get some assets for me, as long as you move me somewhere that I can win, I wouldn't mind. But I think the Bucks were like, no, we're not looking to do that. We would like you to retire here no matter what it looks like, and we'll do our best to compete. And I think he's like, all right. It seems like everything is copacetic there to me. So I think Durant is the big one. And the reason I think it should be Houston, and I guess maybe I'm thinking more in terms of should than will happen, but if I'm the Spurs, I'm not in a rush. If I'm Houston, I just saw, like, I had the stuff to get the second seed. And granted, could easily have been the seventh, but we got the second seed. And we just plain clearly didn't have nearly enough to compete at a playoff level with basically any of the other. I mean, they lost to the Warriors, who then got, granted without Steph, smacked by the Timberwolves, who then got beat up pretty good by the Thunder. You're like several levels.
Big transitive property guy is Kolsky. Big transitive property guy.
That's exactly. If A equals B, like, C is Houston is a long way from competing for a playoff spot. And what was the biggest, or for a final spot? And what was the biggest problem for them? A go-to
Not enough
scorer.
scoring.
That's it. They needed somebody they could give the ball to in clutch moments. They did not have it. And Jalen Green is a problem for them that could be a potential for someone like the Suns, or maybe they move him on, like Jalen Green hasn't had it. He's not ready to be a primary scorer, but boy, that's an exciting prospect still. And he's still pretty young. So to me, it makes a lot of sense on both ends. And if I'm Kevin Durant and the offer is like, go back to Texas where, he had a great time at college, and be the basically mercenary bucket getter for a team of absolute dogs, and a head coach that's going to take most of the attention, like, great, I'm in, sign me up. So that deal makes a lot of sense to me. And Houston has enough assets and enough of a picture of their own ceiling, I think, as currently constituted, that they should be extremely motivated to make that deal. Like, what do you need that's not named Thompson? You can have it.
Coming up, let's talk about what the Warriors can expect next year in terms of like a ceiling, a realistic expectation for what they can do. They were one of the best teams in the NBA, statistically speaking and record-wise, after the Jimmy Butler acquisition. And you would imagine that it's going to look pretty similar, right? How good can they be? Let's debate. OLIPOP's a new kind of soda that's made for people who love the classic taste of pop but don't want all the bad things that get in your way. There's just 2 to 5 grams of sugar in every can, 9 grams of prebiotic fiber. That's why OLIPOP is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Forget traditional soda loaded with sugar. Coke has 39 grams. Orange Fanta has 44. It's not good for you. This, however, does something good for your body. My favorite flavor? It's cream soda, but I'm out of it, so I'll go with cherry cola. It's delicious. They also have grape. They have watermelon lime. They have root beer, and it tastes like the real thing. I used to go to festivals back in the day and play the ring toss to win myself a 2-liter, and I'd drink an entire thing of mug root beer. I'd feel terrible. So I cut soda out of my life completely, and I was a water person, even though I loved soda. OLIPOP has changed the game. I love it, and it gives you a third of your daily recommended fiber. So check it out. It is good stuff. Get a free can of OLIPOP. Buy 2 cans, any 2, in store, and they'll reimburse you for 1. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find where OLIPOP is near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. But at this age, it's kind of an anomaly that you have players as good as Kevin Durant, and at any point in time, you can make that flip that the Nets made years ago when they're like, let's go out and get Pierce and Garnett and Rondo and whatever. And as soon as they got there, they're like, oh, these guys can't play like they used to anymore. I don't think Durant's that type of guy, especially with his scoring ability and just the havoc that Houston can cause to get him open looks. But yeah, I would be weary of getting rid of someone like Şengün. I mean, Jalen Green, maybe not, but Şengün, and say they wanted Şengün, Reed Shepherd, and Jabari Smith and Tari Eason. They wanted all 4 of those or something. Like, then it starts getting a little dicey. Like,
I agree, but is there enough of a market for Kevin Durant for the Suns to ask for that much? I think that's the question. Right? I mean, look, if the Spurs...
We know what it would have costed the Warriors. It would have costed them Kuminga, Draymond Green, and we don't know about a draft pick, but that's what we believe it would have costed. So,
yeah, but that's a unique situation because, I don't know that Draymond has much... Like, that's a situation where Kuminga was undervalued as an asset on the contract he would have been on at that point last year, and Draymond's overvalued as an asset, financially speaking, right? So it's a weird, like, I don't think the Suns care about Draymond. They would have been unloading Durant and trying to bring on the young talent of Kuminga. It's a little different now, everyone knows they can't bring Kevin Durant back. Like, the door is shut. They've basically said as much. And even if Durant's value was super high. Like, who are the teams that need a Kevin Durant right now? It's not to need and be able to afford a big price for someone like Kevin Durant is kind of rare. And Houston probably is as much in that position as anyone. Because again, if I'm San Antonio, like, I got a young player in Castle that looked good. I have the best young asset in the league in Wembanyama. I got Dylan Harper if I want him. Like, let's slow our roll. We're already going to be competing for a playoff spot with these young guys. Like, let's just let this thing build and not make any rash decisions. I don't think I would want Kevin Durant if I were the Spurs. As much as, it's an enticing idea having Durant and Wembanyama on the same team.
I will say, after the whole Warriors James Wiseman #2 pick, when they thought they had the team, and clearly they did, they won an NBA championship a couple of years later. But after that whole debacle, I think San Antonio should maybe take a long look at that, especially considering, I mean, Wemby's what? You figure he's got 3 years before he hits rookie extension time. And you would imagine that, he's going to be making a boatload of money in San Antonio. They're going to retain him. But De'Aaron Fox, they can't keep all these guys there together at any point. Would they go the route of trading that #2 pick and getting a ready-made veteran to really bring this team from a squad that we thought last year could have been the Houston of the West, and they did not turn into the Houston of the West. They had injuries, and the entire season was derailed. Not even a play-in team.
Yeah,
that's the question. Like, do you go with the young, because they already have youth? They don't need any more youth, right? They need a surefire thing, and that #2 pick's a pretty nice asset.
But Dylan Harper is a heck of a player, right? I mean, you're talking about a kid that would be a #1 pick in a lot of drafts, son of an NBA All-Star.
Shout out Miami Redhawks.
Yeah, man. I get it. That is why it's a tough question, right? That is why they're being mentioned in the Kevin Durant stuff. But the only way I make a deal for Kevin Durant is if I believe I'm winning a title with him, and I don't see it. Is De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Durant, and Victor Wembanyama right now better than what the Thunder are doing? I don't know. I don't think
You're
so.
able to keep Vassell and Stephon Castle, and I mean, you got to trade someone, right?
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Make
You're gonna have to trade somebody. And I think Harrison Barnes is probably the guy that goes in for money purposes, but you're gonna have to put certainly the #2 pick, maybe also Vassell, if not Castle, into that deal. So,
and this is what scares you, dude, around the league is so many of these teams have avenues to get a lot better. And Steve Kerr has mentioned that the Warriors are pretty confident rolling out the ball with, a similar team that they had a season ago. The vibes were great. The locker room was good. The proof was in the pudding that adding Jimmy Butler turned them into a serious team. And Joe Lacob and company have said that if they had Steph Curry, they believed they would have won that Minnesota series. So I don't know how much of a shakeup you'll see. And then you look at a team like Orlando, they couldn't put the ball in the basket, but they had some tantalizing pieces. And now what do they get? They get, I think, one of the most underrated shooters in the game, and Desmond Bane, that, has been a Warriors killer.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really have to worry about them, luckily.
I'm just saying, in general, there are teams like the Magic out there, right? That just
I mean, that's the fear of the whole Western Conference. It was already a fight tooth and nail to get to 7, and then to get in at the actual 7 seed, right? I mean, and yes, other teams can get better, and then some other teams might get worse. But what the Warriors are counting on is that they are already better than what they finished last year as, right? They're counting on, with what we've already done, we think we would have been more in the 4 or 5 range where the Clippers and Nuggets ended up, right? So then, and honestly, I don't think that's crazy. Like, this team, as currently constituted, certainly if they get anything out of Kuminga, they can compete with Denver. No reason they can't. They can compete with the Clippers, But how much better are the Houston Rockets or the San Antonio Spurs or, the Pelicans seem totally out of their depth. So I don't know that you need to worry about them. But, like, there are other teams out there that can improve as well. And Minnesota, there's just, it's It's relentless, and it's really, really hard to get into one of the top 6 playoff spots in the West. But I think it's hard for me to envision a scenario where we don't go into the year believing that that is a reasonable goal for the Golden State Warriors.
It's the only goal right now. We'll talk about
Yeah, and it'll be
championships.
reasonable.
We'll talk about that down the road. But
Yeah.
the only thing that you want to see from the Warriors entering next season is, regardless of who they roll out there, a good start, finishing on what they did a season ago, 23-8, that sort of thing. And granted, they had a good start this past season. You see how quickly a good start can just turn into, we're very average. But you get to a good start next season, and you do have some things that you can change at the deadline to find the right players if you're missing a certain ingredient to, having this team be a title contender. But guess what? You come out next year, you look old, you look slow, you're sputtering. There's not a lot that you can do aside from, getting out the TNT and changing a lot of things. So a hot start is, it's very basic basketball 101 analysis, but in this situation with an older team like the Warriors that's seeing that window kind of close, unless you ask Dell Curry, you got to get off to a good start.
There is no question that what you would like to do next season is play well enough for the first 60 games. Obviously that starts with a good start, but well enough for the first 50 to 60 games that you're not pressing down the stretch the way they had to this season, just to make sure you're not in the play-in. That being said, as good as that conference is, it's hard to imagine it not being pretty nip and tuck. I really think it's likely to be 3 to 5 games separating the 2nd and 10th seed once again. So, we'll see, man. I'm not putting anything past Steph Curry and company, but it is likely to be a long, hard fight once again.
It's the wild, wild west once again, entering 2025, 2026. Matt Kolsky, thank you for joining the program today. We will talk to you soon, everyone. This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, free on YouTube and wherever you get your audio podcasts.